No matter how short or how long your memory is, I'm sure you think of Jim Backus and associate him very closely with the Mr. Magoo character, or perhaps the character that was on Gilligan's Island, or I Married Joan, or for some of you folks who even go back further, there's movies like Rebel Without a Cause, and there are old radio shows as well. I have Jim Backus on the line, and his wife Henny Backus as well. They've both been in show business for a long time, and have worked together throughout the years. Isn't that right?
Yes, it's so. Well, what you were just saying about old pictures, we just got a letter from Phyllis Diller, who happens to be in Australia, and she was watching Ice Palace that I did with Richard Burton.
You know, the letter just came about 5 minutes ago.
And
she says, I'm here, I'm going to stay up all night and watch Ice Palace. I love it.
That was a very popular picture that I did with Richard Burton. Did
Yeah.
you see it?
I did see it. It's been a long time ago, but you're starting to whet my appetite. I wish I'd have an opportunity to look at it again.
Late enough you can see it.
Yeah.
It's on at prime time, too.
Is it?
Yeah, repeat.
How many can say that they worked with James Dean, though, a guy that was considered a classic actor in just a few short films?
Yes, well, what can I tell you about Jimmy Dean, except he was a great talent.
We have a whole chapter about Jimmy Dean in our new book that you just read called Forgive Us Our Digressions.
This is not your first book, is it?
It's our fourth book. The first one was Rocks on the Roof, and the second one, I wish we could find another great title like that, was What Are You Doing After the Orgy? And the third book, which was a funny book about Jim's illness, was called Backus Strikes Back, and now we have this one, Forgive Us Our Digressions.
We were going to call it Up the Golden Years.
Did you like the book?
I did like it. It's a lot of fun. There are a lot of laughs, and
we've just gotten brilliant notices. We're thrilled as we can be. We hope everybody reads it and likes it.
yeah. Even if you're not familiar with some of the show, of course, why wouldn't you be? The Gilligan's Island, I think, is still in reruns, and so is I Married Joan. And of course, you can catch the movies, as you said, from time to time.
Most people forget that I was primarily a movie actor before I went into television.
And quite a golfer too, right?
Well, yes, I guess so. But I haven't touched a stick in 6 years.
Well, Jim used to be the fourth best actor golfer in the world, and when he was a child, he was a child golf champion. He used to play charity matches.
So I never went into it seriously. I toyed with the idea of becoming a pro when I was about 18 years old. But in those days, the purse for the entire tournament was $1,200.
Yeah. Henny, I can hear you fine. Jim, you may have to speak up just a little bit. I hate to have you strain. Sometimes if you talk very loud at each other, people think we're angry, but we're not. we're just trying to hear each other.
Me this low?
You're low, darling.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've worked together through many years. We mentioned the illness. I think people had heard before that you had been sick for some time, Jim. How are you doing these days?
Well, I'll let Henny tell you.
He's much better. He's really better. When the other book came out 3 years ago, he couldn't promote the book at all. He couldn't do anything. And as a matter of fact, he was in the hospital for a while, and then in bed with nurses round the clock for 9 months.
I don't know if you said that right.
What?
He was in bed with nurses round the clock?
Yes, I meant that. No,
He took a turn for the nurse. Remember that joke?
That's Groucho Marx, isn't it?
He took a turn for the nurse.
Jimmy,
Either
isn't that a Groucho joke? Yeah.
Either Groucho or W.C. Fields or something.
No, it really is a Groucho. I remember it well.
Is it really?
Yeah. Anyway, he's been going to physical therapy and swimming and walking and going to ballet school. In fact, in an hour we go to ballet school.
Is that right?
Perfect form of exercise.
No, I wouldn't know that.
Gorgeous in his tutu. And he's doing very well at the bar.
You were a model, were you not, Henny?
Oh, yes, I was.
A model, a sculptress, I guess that's the right term.
I guess it is.
And also an actress.
Right.
What are some of the films you were in?
Well, let's see. The Great Man with Jim. Jose Ferrer directed, a wonderful movie, which is a cult movie now. Julius Caesar, with everybody who was in Julius Caesar. What did I do with you? What's the name of the movie we did with Sharon Tate and Tony Curtis? Can you remember it? The last picture Sharon Tate ever made. We did so many, I can't remember one. A movie called Magic Carpet, which you can see any night at 3 a.m. And we did a series together, the name of which we will not tell you. It was just awful. And I did a guest shot on Gilligan's Island, and the girls' voices on the Magoos. And I played Joan Davis's girlfriend on the series. And quite a few movies. I can't think of one. This is ridiculous.
Found time to cook for me.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
being a great cook either.
In the book, you talk about I Married Joan and what a physical show that was to do after so many years of radio. I guess it was during the Depression when you really got into radio work, right, Jim?
Yeah, in the 30s. I started out as a radio announcer at WTAM in Cleveland.
And decided to do radio acting.
Yeah, and then I moved to New York with that and became one of the, I
Well,
guess,
the
about 20 of us did most of the work there.
Yeah.
There was a little in group, and they did everything. There was Richard Widmark and Barry Sullivan and Gregory Peck,
Everett Sloan.
Everett Sloan, a lot of names you know, Mercedes McCambridge, me,
And,
thanks to Jimmy, who
Yeah.
started me in
we were
radio.
Millionaires Anonymous.
That was the days before the heavy taxes, I assume.
Heavy taxes, and we got no billing.
Nobody knew who was playing what.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I know you knew,
They didn't round your name off at the end of the show, but so no one became a star.
but you didn't have to worry about being typecast.
No, God, no.
Anything but.
I played Romanian babies, Alaskan prospectors. That's where I got the Mr. Magoo was. In those days, you had to have what was called an after double. Let's say you got called for a show, and you showed up, and they wanted you to play straight, a straight lawyer and the leading man, whatever befits your lovely tones. But they also asked you to do a double.
To save money, you had to play two
Yeah, you
parts.
had to play two parts. Like you play an old postman or a trolley car conductor, and so you get your voice as far away as the other. So that's really how Mr. Magoo started.
I'll be darned. So you could do all those parts, and people really wouldn't know. I suppose in the audience, if you did it in front of a live audience, they'd realize it was the same person. But at home, you'd never know.
That's right.
The live audiences weren't that large, and you're fading out.
Am I fading out?
No, he is.
Oh, I'm fading out.
Yeah,
Am
badly.
I fading out?
Not to me.
We can put a man. We can put a man on the moon, but we can't communicate by telephone
Not
sometimes.
with this phone we're on. We're on an independent phone company
Hey,
called
Lawrence
General.
Rocket.
We can't hear each other sometimes.
Thank goodness they broke up AT&T. I've always said that.
Oh yeah, no, it would have been better.
Would your listeners be able to hear us?
Yeah, I think we're going to do okay.
You're still fading.
I think we're going to do okay. I'm not angry. I'm just going to talk loud to you.
That's lovely. I can hear you.
Okay. I Married Joan was a very physical show, unlike radio, where you really had to memorize all the scripts. You didn't work with cue cards at all, did you?
No. 55 pages a week.
Wow.
I sometimes figured it out. That's the same as memorizing 2 War and Peace, the Yellow Book, and
The Bible.
And the Bible.
Henny, you said you admired Joan Davis, but you really weren't close friends, right?
Nobody was a close friend of Joan's. She didn't want friends. She really didn't. Her only interest in life was that show. That was
Clothes.
it. And her clothes, that's right. She was clothes crazy. She lived right across the street from us, and we were never friends, but we used to play scenes together, and I loved working with her. She was so giving and wonderful when she was working, and ice cold and cranky when she wasn't.
Yeah. Now, in the book, you mentioned that she had really no respect for the writer. She didn't understand writing at all, did she?
Well, no, but she could write a joke.
Mm-hmm.
She understood that.
She called them the boys.
Yeah, I guess, because that goes back to what, the radio days when the writers were known as the boys.
Yeah. I read something about, in a book just recently that said, I thought we were the only ones that commented on it.
Yeah, but the only one is the
Steve
reason.
Allen and I discussed it one time.
The boys on the Joan Davis show were Leon Uris and Neil Simon,
Abe Burrows.
Sherwood Schwartz, Abe Burrows. Some boys, huh?
Yeah, I had a chance to talk with Abe Burrows shortly before he died, and he was quite a guy.
Yes, he was.
He was known as the fix-it man or
The show doctor.
the show doctor, yes.
Yeah.
Well, those guys were great to turn out those shows week after week. I have nothing but respect for them. I don't know how they did it,
Yeah.
including Gilligan's Own.
The Joan Davis show always ended on some kind of a kicker at the end, I guess is the way you put it in the book.
Wild.
It's called a button.
A button?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing as It's a Rap or Fini. But we did physical things. Like I remember one time she had to try to get a soup recipe for something. She wound up in the kitchen of a big hotel, and the chef chased her. She fell into a vat of tomato soup. She did this all by herself.
No doubles.
No doubles. And I did a lot of stunts with her in no doubles. Of course, Joan was a great dancer.
Well, she was an acrobat, Jimmy. She did a show on the high wire once without a net.
She could do anything.
Yeah.
All her
But she
concentration.
was very impatient. She could do anything, and she expected everybody else. Like one time, we had a canary supposed to fly into the room with a note. Drop it. She was in the kitchen. she reads a note and does one of her famous Davis takes, gives the thing back to the canary, and the canary flies up. Canary did it great, and the cameraman said, Miss Davis, I'm sorry to tell you, where the camera funked out on it. She said, do it again. So it did it again, the parrot and the canary dropped the note. And she said, that canary will never work for me again.
She also said that directly to a turtle. The stupid turtle was supposed to make an entrance and didn't.
Yeah.
And she got so mad, she said, okay, you'll never work for me again.
Yeah. I mentioned W.C. Fields. W.C. Fields was very jealous, evidently, from what I was able to read, of Charlie Chaplin. Joan Davis was pretty jealous of Lucille Ball at that time, was she not?
She was jealous because we worked next door, and we saw a lot of each other. She was actually in awe of Lucy, and she loved her, and Lucy loved her, but they
were rivals.
Yeah, pretty fierce competitors, I would think.
Joan felt that she had to do everything that Lucy did.
Yeah.
When Lucy got the baby, Joan was crazy. She looked at the writers, at me.
We wondered if she had the nights right. The Trois de Seigneur.
The Hubert Updike, the third character, that came about on radio, right?
Again, Sherwood Schwartz.
Who wrote Gilligan?
Sherwood Schwartz wrote. I first met him with Alan Young where I had Hubert Updike. Then next with I Married Joan.
And then Gilligan's
Island. And it looks like we're going to have a fourth project together. So
actually, the character Jim does on Gilligan's Island is a descendant of Hubert Updike.
Uh-huh. Very rich, uppity.
You want to do one of the jokes, Jimmy?
Yeah, let me get a sip of water here.
He was a guy that...
Let's go.
All right.
Okay.
Go ahead. No, you.
Oh, Mary Jane, I'll take you for a ride in my Cadillac station wagon. We'll listen to Guy Lombardo and his Royal Canadian.
Oh, do you have a radio in your car?
No, I have Guy Lombardo and his Royal Canadian in my car. Oh, heavens, I have to get a new car.
Why?
Well, it's pointing the wrong way.
Or the ashtrays are full. Or I heard it spent the night in the garage with a Ford.
That's trouble with Harry James. He wouldn't stand at the hood.
We're going to break for a commercial. We'll be right back with Jim Backus and Henny Backus talking about their new book called Forgive Us, Our Digressions, an autobiography. Okay. Jim, I don't know, for some reason you're still low, but I think it's going to work.
Are they hearing me?
Yeah, I think so, but you're a lot lower. Jim Backus and Henny Backus on the line with us this morning in Bloomington Normal. You've traveled around a lot, I assume, through various phases of your career, have you not? Have you ever come through our town?
No, I never have, but I think Jimmy might have.
What town is that?
Bloomington Normal, Illinois.
No.
I'm sure I have.
You think so? Maybe on some golf outing or whatever.
Oh, hell yes. I think I've been every place in this country. Sure, I've been there.
At least on the TV sets around here, anyway. I wanted to talk to you, though. When you live in California, you socialize a lot, and there are a lot of your friends pictured in the book. I know we mentioned Groucho, and there's a shot of him in here, George Behrens, who...
George kissing Jimmy.
Yeah.
A lot of kissing pictures, aren't there?
I guess, yeah, there really are. Why is that in Hollywood, anyway?
Well, because we all love each other. We're very kissy people, but that's as far as it goes.
We haven't got time for anything else.
Yeah, anymore, I guess that's all you want time for.
Yes, that's right.
George is a very funny guy.
Oh, he's wonderful. You know what he said to me just the other night? I said, George, you're so wonderful. You're so young. What's your secret? And he said, don't fall in love with your bed. Isn't that wonderful? And then we were talking about preservatives and food, and George said, don't say that about preservatives. At my age, you need all the preservatives you can get.
He's really good when it comes to turning the, what do you call it, the twist, I guess, with the joke?
Turning a phrase.
Turning a phrase.
Yeah, he has a brilliant mind and a very fast, sharp mind. It's astonishing when you think of how old he is.
Yeah.
And no formal education.
Yeah, he started very young.
He started when he was...
about 8 or 9.
Yeah, in grade school. And
yeah.
He's never... And yet he's a very erudite guy.
Well, he reads everything.
He's a great editor, a great writer.
Now, you talk about your father in the book, Jim. You talk about how he had an eye for a studio, and he recommended which studio you should get involved with, right?
Well, that was from his point of view.
I've got to tell you one story about Jim's father, if I may.
Sure.
When I first met Jim became a radio star and got his own show, and he called his father and said, Pop, guess what? I'm a star. I have my own show. Will you listen? And Pop said, of course I'll listen. When is it? Then I'll be clear, son. So Jim said, It's Wednesday night, 8:30, CBS. And his father called him back on Friday and said, "Love the show, you were great, but you were wrong, son, it was Tuesday night."
It's one of those things you never can explain.
And he was a character. We don't know whether he was putting us on or what.
Or he may have just had the wrong night, huh?
Well, how could he? Yes. There's no way you can explain that.
He also would twist names around somewhat, would he not?
Yes, he called me Penny.
All the time. Never did call you Henny.
Never.
Yeah. There are people like that can, I get, they do very well in life. And evidently your dad did, right?
Yes. Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Did what?
Did very well in life.
Oh, yes, yes. But aside from the material things, I think he had a great life. He enjoyed being on the earth, and he enjoyed things like sunsets and booze and
golf.
And he was I think he was very contented and knew he had it good and appreciated it.
Yeah.
That was a good marriage. He adored Daisy, Jim's mother.
And I was a good son with him.
I like to hear people talk like that. You know, many of us in other walks of life look at people who have made it in the public eye or in show business, films, movies, whatever, and we think, boy, if we could just accomplish that, we'd really have something going for us. What would you people list as your greatest accomplishments?
Staying married.
Well, that's a good one.
But no, really, and still being in love. Because although marriage may be a gift from God, you do have to do your own maintenance. It's hard work. You work at it all the time. And it's the most worthwhile job there is. I always give young people one bit of advice when they're getting married, and I would say, don't let your marriage interfere with your romance. Which is a good piece of advice, actually, isn't it?
Yeah. It's easy to be infatuated, but to stay together through the years, through the good times and the bad, that's what really, I think that really is what love is about.
You know, you have to communicate. Your interests have to be alike. And I'll tell you something. If any girl out there listening is going to marry an actor, my advice is do a stint as an actress yourself so you understand the pressures under which actors work and all the insanity that goes on.
Now, you realized that when the I Married Joan show was going on, because Jim would travel with Joan Davis, and people would expect them to be married, right?
Yeah.
They were on the TV show.
I'll tell you a story about that. When she didn't want to do publicity and she didn't like it, she would make me do it. I loved it. And at the last minute, I replaced her out of town somewhere, and Jim and I were walking into a hotel. It was so sudden we weren't even booked. And I thought, well, I'll pay you back for all of this nonsense. So I took off my wedding ring and walked 3 paces behind him. We got to the desk, and the clerk looked up and said, well, it's the judge from the Joan Davis show. What can I do for you? And Jim said, we'd like a room. And the man gave me a horrible look and said to Jimmy, do you want twin beds or a double bed? And Jim said, darling, would you like twin beds or a double bed? And I said, oh, it doesn't matter to me, sir.
Listen, may I interrupt, honey?
I'll get it.
We'll be back talking about Forgive Us Our Digressions. I tell you, I've always been fascinated with show business people, and you really come through and don't pull any punches as far as I can tell. And it turns out to be a very touching but yet a very funny book. This from Jim and Henny Backus called Forgive Us Our Digressions. It is available in bookstores. It's gotten some good reviews, and it is really fun reading. I just want to wish you folks the best. Good luck with this thing.
Well, thank you, Ken. It was a lovely way to spend the morning.
We adored it. Call on us anytime.
All right.
Anytime at all, we'd love to chat with you.